I've got 105 recorded sales calls sitting in my business. And rather than guessing as to why some people bought and others didn't, what I decided to do was to load them into AI and let AI analyze them and essentially remove the emotion from it and give me some hard truths. I asked it to tell me what objections kept coming up, what patterns it was seeing, what things prospects kept saying before deciding not to proceed. So I'm going to dig into 4 themes that were revealed from this analysis work that I did with ChatGPT, and I'm going to be sharing the discoveries that came out of that work. And I expected price to be at the top of the list. Price did come up as you would expect, but what surprised me was what was actually sitting underneath those pricing, and I go pricing, objections. Because sometimes we think that it's the number, it's the investment that they're objecting against, when really there's a whole plethora of other reasons, and we'll get into that. But essentially, they weren't just questioning the price. What they were asking was exactly what is going to change for me after I make this investment. How am I going to look different, be different, operate differently? Can you prove that it's going to work for me? And this whole exercise has caused me to think entirely differently about my offers. So when you boil it down, I've used AI to help to turn old conversations into business intelligence. And I love that because for the most part, we're using AI to help us to create content or to draft emails or to, I don't know, make twins of ourselves, right? When really, as I've said, what it allowed for me to do was to get intelligence. So I was able to get the voice of the customer. I was able to really understand what was sitting behind their objections. So not just a pricing objection, not just a timing objection, but actually AI was able to help me to really understand what they said and what that actually meant in reality. And really, I couldn't have held 105 different sales conversations in my head with all of the nuances, with all of the emotion that comes with it, right? Because if I had sat and gone through those transcripts, more than likely I would have got in my feels. So what this exercise provided me was an objective way to really analyze patterns, to analyze language, and to come up with a plan for how I can utilize these assets in my business. So let's get into it. Let me give you the tea as to what came up, because there were some discoveries and some were quite hard to swallow, if I can keep it 100. Some were quite hard to swallow. But like medicine, we don't always like taking it, but it's absolutely good for us. And guys, if you haven't subscribed, this would be a good time. I'm about to get into the tea. So the first discovery was that price was the number one objection. But I'm not convinced that it's all about price or it's only about price. When AI reviewed the transcripts, phrases such as "it's too expensive" or "can you do it for less" or "what's the return on investment" came up over and over again, people needing to go away and check budget. And when you get these types of objections, the first thing we can think is, oh, maybe I need to lower my price. When really they're not asking for, well, they probably are asking for a discount, but that's not really the concern that sits behind it. Often when people are querying price, it really comes down to them not fully understanding the value. If you try to sell me something for £2,000 and I don't understand what I'm going to get for that, I don't understand the value, then it seems expensive. However, if I fully understand the potential return on investment, I understand that this £2,000 investment is going to make me 20,000, then it's a no-brainer. And funnily enough, as I was doing this work, talking to Chatty, I got a message from a guy on WhatsApp who was offering to edit my videos. So he was offering to provide me with short form videos. And I was going back to him and sort of saying, like, thank you for the offer, but I have a tool that creates short form videos. So I don't see the need or there's no value to me in hiring somebody when you guys saw my subscriptions for my software, right? I have the tools. So he came back and was just like, I can do it at a very low budget. And I went back to him, I sent him a voice note and I said, like, dude, it's not about just like slashing your price. I'm trying to understand what is the value to me in you doing it as opposed to Restream, as opposed to Riverside. What am I getting for not only having to make that investment, but B, there's a cost to working with somebody else, right? When he's off sick or on holiday with his family and I need my shorts, I need my reels, right? He's off sunning himself. Riverside doesn't take holiday. Riverside doesn't get sick. So that was like a in the moment demonstration of exactly the thing that I was seeing from my perspective in my business. I was having this conversation with a freelancer. So I say that to say, if we don't communicate the value, then people don't make a buying decision. I could have just said no to that guy and called it quits. But I wanted to have the conversation with him because I did not understand what was he going to do differently to Riverside, right? What was he going to do? And what he did in the end was he sent me a link to his Google Drive with some examples of his work. And his style, in essence, wasn't what I was going for or what I needed. But I wanted to give him the time of day, have that conversation. And also it just highlighted the fact that I probably haven't been the best at communicating the value. And so I need to get better at making sure that the commercial outcomes are really clear before somebody even gets onto a call. They should understand what the transformation, what the commercial return on that investment is. And really they're getting onto the call to dot the I's and cross the T's because they have clarity around that. And that leads me nicely onto discovery number 2. So what the AI revealed was that people didn't have clarity around the transformation. They would ask questions in regards to the results. They wanted to know exactly what would change for them. They wanted to see examples. They wanted to have clarity around measurable outcomes. And as experts, we can be so close to our work and what we do that to us it's just obvious. We're like, can they not see how I'm going to fix this? Can they not see what the result is? So I'm thinking, maybe I was too focused on the work as opposed to the transformation. And by the work, I mean like focusing on the features. So we're going to work together for 4 months and you're going to have strategy calls and resources and I'm going to give you playbooks and we're going to have fortnightly all the kind of details that are important and you need to know. But really understanding the result and the transformation is the first thing. Those things that are the features, they then just substantiate the approach that you're taking and kind of give evidence to why your mechanism and why your approach is a way that is a valid approach that could get the results. So unfortunately, focusing solely on the features, the bells and the whistles, don't push somebody over the line. They don't cause somebody to make a buying decision because prospects are really trying to find out what is going to be different. After I work with you for these 4 months, after I've invested this sum of money, what changes? And then the third discovery that I made was that the objection of the timing isn't right. So, not now, come back in Q4. I had objections around the 4 months being too long. Could we just slash it to 6 weeks? I had objections around, their team not being prepared and geared up. They didn't have capacity. And when I sat with that, what I realized was that my packaging needed to be amended. Because in essence, if I'm offering a 4-month commitment, and this person has kind of just come into my world, they're on this sales call, they need to feel as though they can make an investment where the risk is lower for them. I had to question whether my offers, my packages were asking too much of prospects in terms of time commitment before they'd even experienced a quick win. And so they wanted to make an investment, but to do it in a way that felt safe and almost de-risked the investment for them. So as I was thinking today, I need to restructure things. So going from maybe offering an audit, doing a really in-depth audit, to a sprint, a short 3 weeks, 2 weeks sprint, right? To get them that quick win, to then substantiate and validate why the 4-month commitment is necessary, because we've worked together for that sprint period and they've seen the results. Then inviting them into a deeper, longer engagement just feels like a logical next step and is more likely to be a easier yes. And I'm so glad that AI has helped me with those 105 calls to kind of arrive at that, to build out a product ladder, very roughly at the moment, but I'll refine it over time. As I've said, I couldn't have held all of that information in my head, so AI was able to look at it objectively and to show me, Chelena, like, this is where you were going wrong. And I love that. Discovery 4 was all around prospects asking me, will this work for me? And the data was showing that, in essence, people were looking for examples. They were looking for evidence, receipts of people who looked like them, industry, demographic, outcome that they were seeking, in order to feel comfortable to go on to work together. Some people weren't even clear as to whether they should be on LinkedIn, if that was somewhere that they should invest their time and energy into. There were questions around whether I had worked in a particular sector with a particular niche, with a particular type of business, whether education or corporate, product or service. So they really needed to see examples of themselves, not just more testimonials. They needed to see specific examples that were relevant and they could recognize themselves in. I didn't do such a good job of doing that. I had examples, but really I needed to pull on specific ones for those clients that were in front of me at the time. So when I look at all of this holistically, I'm just wondering whether I've made it too complicated, too difficult for people to work with me. I had multiple offers, within those offers, multiple tiers, the duration, that kind of upfront commitment before getting a win for them. There were too many choices, too much explanation, not enough clarity around, this is the problem, this is the result, this is who this worked for, and this is what you should do next. This is what they needed, and I was oblivious and missing the mark. And I feel like just this whole Project Freedom 46 has given me the space, the room to start to think about some of these things that I had just been going full throttle and not actually realizing that simplification probably is the thing that was missing. To get to freedom, you really do have to simplify. So this experiment has really solidified that in my mind. I need to simplify and just make things straightforward, not only for myself, but for the people who are coming into my business, the people who are considering working with me. I was adding cognitive load, and people who are unclear or have too much to decide, too much to think about, generally don't make a decision. So in doing this work, I've been able to mine first-party data. Chat wasn't on those calls with me. Chat doesn't know my prospects in detail, but it has allowed me to interrogate the data at speed. Like literally, it took seconds to come up with these themes, these patterns, these topics that would have taken me weeks, months, or years to even analyze. If you're a coach, a consultant, an expert, and you're getting value from this, please go ahead and subscribe, like it, share it with your business bestie, and check out the rest of the videos in this playlist. So what am I going to do with these findings? I've taken the first step in carrying out the analysis. I think this provides me with an opportunity to go deeper and to really carry out some audits into some areas that maybe I had just allowed to continue ticking over just in my head. A, assuming that it's working. B, kind of chalking up the nose to, the price is too high, they don't have the money to invest, or I'm going after the wrong type of client, I need to change my avatar. So yeah, in my head, I had concluded that it was somebody else's problem, and chat gave me a rude awakening this morning. So, what I need to start with is having a look at my offer pages, my landing pages. What is the messaging? What is the copy actually communicating? Is the transformation clear enough? Do I have case studies that are providing examples of different types of products? With my product ladder, can I simplify that? Is there a way to reduce some of the cognitive load, the decision making that has to take place? So, can I scale that back? Looking at my pricing commitment, asking somebody who's just come into my world to commit to 4 months probably feels like a bit of a stretch. So, can I start with something that feels lighter and easier? Yes, get them a quick win, and then the longer, deeper engagement will just be an easier next step. And then the final thing that I pulled out from all of this is that this work has given me essentially sales content. I can start to create content that speaks to those objections. I've got like the voice of the customer, the words that they've used, the questions that they've asked. I can now start to create content that tackles and handles all of that. And the reason why that is super beneficial is before they get on the call, they've hopefully gone through, they've been able to access that. I've educated them so that I'm speaking to an educated buyer who may have been thinking, can she get me the results? But because of a blog post, because of a YouTube video, because of an email sequence, a podcast, whatever mechanism I choose to leverage, I'm now going to help that person to say yes because there aren't unanswered questions in their mind. So essentially, these old sales calls have become intellectual property, they're assets, they're valuable, and I'm definitely going to start leveraging them. Going through this process has actually shown me that the data that I have in my business will direct me. It will show me what people are asking for, what they're querying, what they need more evidence about. I've got 105 conversations that are sitting there telling me the answers. So this is day 10 of the Project Freedom 46. I would love to know, are you leveraging the sales conversations that you're having, the discovery calls? Have you ever carried out such an exercise? Have you analyzed your data? I would love to know. Drop it in the comments and let me know. And I'll see you tomorrow.